Tanjiro Kamado, main protagonist of Demon Slayer and also winner of Crunchyroll's Best Boy Anime Award. Tanjiro is easily one of the most wholesome and positive characters in the series. His bright personality was actually by design, as the editor thought the initial storyboard was too dark and serious to make the cut for serialization. His character is literally the light among the darkness. In a world where demons slaughter entire human families, Tanjiro is optimistic. Optimistic that Nezuko will be back to her normal self, that he can get stronger to protect her, and also optimistic that he can protect everyone around him from evil. How can someone that has gone through such painful and atrocious events still find that silver lining? That is what we're going to answer in today's video. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can learn valuable lessons from your favorite anime. I will also be referring to the Mugen Train movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, there will be some minor spoilers, so consider yourself warned. Now, the first thing we need to do is to define what optimism is. Optimism is the quality of being full of hope and emphasizing the good parts of a situation. Based on that definition, it is clear that the first building block of optimism is hope. Hope is a realistic expectation that something good will happen, and that can be quite difficult at times, especially during a global pandemic. Life is suffering, and you may think that it is naive to be hopeful. Optimism definitely can be found in naivete, but there's also a type of optimism that is realistic and isn't naive. We don't have to delude ourselves to be hopeful, because hope doesn't necessarily mean thinking that everything will always be amazing. Hope can come from a realistic expectation. To build that realistic expectation, though, we need a good reason, something we can use as a source to refer to when we need to reinforce our belief that good things can happen. In Tanjiro's case, he has plenty of good reasons to be hopeful about life. He grew up in a loving family and a village where they all deeply cared for him and helped him when in need. Growing up in an environment where love is reciprocated, Tanjiro was exposed to positivity almost all of his life, so it was very easy for him to believe that people can be good. His experience with the villagers and his family are his sources of hope, and he can refer to his experience whenever he needs to reinforce his belief that good things can happen. When he lost his family, Nezuko became another source of hope, as she was the only one to survive. Instead of giving up or focusing on what he lost, Tanjiro focused on what he had. After that, Tomioka and Sakonji became new sources of hope as well. As he shared his story with them, they ended up helping him on his path to become a demon slayer. So to cultivate similar sources of hope for our own personal lives, we need to find our own personal realistic reason to be hopeful. For example, you can purposefully introduce positivity into your day-to-day life. Tanjiro was very fortunate to grow up in a loving family, but not everyone is. In our society where bad news dominate headlines because they sell better, we are consistently bombarded with negativity. However, we do have the power to control the content we consume in a way that is less negative or more positive. Whether it is by reducing social media use or carefully choosing the content you follow, such as the YouTube channels you subscribe to or the people you choose to surround yourself with, you have the power to filter out a lot of negativity out of your life and to expose yourself to more positivity. With the power of technology, we can easily get inspired by positive events and accomplishments from people all around the world, so we should take advantage of that. Not to say that you should avoid all bad news, but you shouldn't only be exposed to those, so start looking up some positive content to follow. Another example would be to focus on what you have. Remember that even though you may not control your situation, you can still control your perspective on it. Even though Tanjiro lost most of his family, he focused on what he had left, which was Nezuko. We can do the same with a little exercise. Every morning, write down one thing on your phone that you are grateful for or that you're proud of. They don't have to be something big, but anything that makes you feel grateful. As you compile your list, you can refer to it whenever you need to lift yourself up. You should also talk to others, families, friends, or a therapist. It helps to get out of your own head. Share your thoughts about things that bother you so you can get a different perspective. It is very easy to get tunnel vision when we're in a dark place, and you never know, maybe they'll end up helping you and guiding you to a path of success, just like Tomioka did. Being hopeful relies partly on having a sense of control, and these actions can help you reinforce that sense. However, we all know that there are situations that are truly out of our control. In the end, life is suffering, but you can reduce it. Hope can reduce it. The hope we have in all our suffering is that we can be stronger than we think we are, which is why the second building block of optimism is resilience. When bad things happen and are out of our control, we need to draw upon resilience. The beauty of resilience is that we all have it in ourselves. Some have developed it more than others, but it is an innate human capacity. Resilience is not a skill, it is an adaptation, and Tanjiro's water breathing techniques are actually the perfect metaphor for it, as water can adapt its shape to anything. Resilience is manifested through thoughts and actions, and we get to witness that manifestation in all of Tanjiro's fight scenes. For example, against Rui when he kept on fighting even after he broke his sword, or during his fight against Enmu from the Mugen Train movie where he recovers from the spell over and over again by killing himself in his dream. A painful yet beautiful display of resilience. Here are some tips that can help you build your own resilience over time. You can focus on your breathing during stressful situations. By doing so, you're taking your mind off of your problems for a brief moment, and that little pause allows you to regulate your emotions and to focus on your situation from an objective standpoint. That is pretty much the essence of meditation and is literally the inspiration for the breathing techniques in Demon Slayer. That is why it is called total concentration breathing. By regulating your emotions, you will be able to leverage your rational mind more to be more competent and resilient in stressful situations. The breathing techniques allow Tanjiro to focus and to find his opening thread so he can overcome the challenge in front of him. In a similar way, controlling your emotions will help you find your opening threads to your problems during stressful situations. Next, you should be proactive. It's helpful to accept things that are beyond your control, but it's also important to take action. A good question to ask yourself during a difficult situation is, what can I do about this problem in my life? Tanjiro decided to get stronger instead of letting hate consume him. And finally, cultivating sources of hope, our first point, can actually help us become more resilient. Hope helps build resilience as the positive expectations motivate us to move forward, and resilience also builds hope. As we get stronger, we take on challenges that are increasingly more difficult, and as we get tougher, we become more confident in our future, more hopeful. And finally, the third building block of optimism is finding meaning in challenging moments. The hope we have in all our suffering is that we can be stronger than we think we are, and that our meaning is linked to the overcoming of suffering. Every single challenge that is put in front of Tanjiro has contributed to his growth. All those challenges have meaning as they help him become stronger. Whether it was his entrance exam to become a demon slayer or the missions he was assigned to, all those challenges have made him stronger and more competent as an individual. And if we go back to the very beginning, his journey to become a demon slayer actually started when tragedy struck him. That tragedy has become part of who he is, and Tanjiro made sure to turn the worst event in his life into a narrative of triumph by getting stronger. And that is why you should choose to see yourself as the hero in your story. A hero's journey is never smooth sailing, but all the obstacles a hero overcomes leads him to a greater goal and a deeper meaning. If you're not the hero of your story, then you are simply a bit part of someone else's. Why be a puppet when you can be a hero? You also need to take the traumas and make them part of who you are. You need to turn those negative experiences into a narrative of triumph, which will then trigger a better response to things that hurt. And lastly, bear responsibility. Life has meaning with responsibility. When you are responsible, everything you do matters. And the more voluntary responsibility you take on, the more meaning your life will have. Not to say that it is an easy thing to do, because it definitely isn't. You can simply look at what Tanjiro had to go through to protect Nezuko. It is definitely very tough, but responsibility is, without a doubt, deeply meaningful, and we should all strive for it. I'll keep this point short for now because the topic of responsibility deserves its own separate video, so stay tuned for that one. That's it. Those were my key takeaways for today. Cultivating multiple sources of hope, building resilience, and finding meaning in difficult times are the key pillars to being optimistic like Tanjiro. And remember when I said in the beginning how Tanjiro was one of the most wholesome characters in the series? Well, my next video will be about a character that is just as wholesome. If you think you know who I'm referring to, feel free to let me know in the comments section below. I'm very curious to see if you guys can guess who it is. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. I'm trying to post more than a video a month, but it's harder than I expected, so thank you very much for your patience. I'll keep working at it, and I'll see you all on the next one.